we are not smaller versions of men. 80% of women suffer from ovulation every month is like.
So who are you and what the hell are you doing here?
I'm Alisa Vitti. I'm a functional nutrition and women's hormone expert. I'm a femtech founder, two-time bestselling author, and the creator of the cycle syncing method, which since the publication of my second book, In the Flow, has really changed the cultural narrative on how women interact with their cycles. Instead of being passive victims to their monthly hormones, they now feel educated, informed, and empowered to actually work with their cycle phases to optimize not only their hormones, but also their productivity and their other aspects of their lives beyond just the period.
Wow. Are we biohacking wrong by ignoring women's hormone cycle?
100%. In fact, I often talk about how we need a more gender-specific biohacking conversation, because when we leave women's hormonal cycles out of that conversation, we end up really leading them into practices that can be hormonally disruptive and create lots of hormonal chaos and unnecessary suffering. For example, a couple of years ago, the studies came out about HIIT workouts being like the gold standard for, let's say fat metabolism. And it turns out that that research was being done on men and postmenopausal women and was leaving out women in their reproductive years who were then doing these HIIT workouts and then ended up dysregulating insulin and cortisol and messing with their period health, fertility. And now we're at a place where a study just came out about a month ago talking about how women are going through perimenopause at the youngest age in human history now than ever before. What are we getting wrong? And this was sort of the big question I was asking myself, a couple of years ago before I wrote the second book. Why is it that 80% of women are struggling with hormones and it's like under 20% with guys? And it's because we're fundamentally missing the fact that women have this specific biological reality, and by ignoring it, we're really hurting their experience.
So, you lead me to my next question. I feel like, so my audience is 55, 60% women from the ages of 25 to 55, right? So that's maybe your core as well.
Yeah, that's exactly who we talk about.
And right. And we've been pushing to have a lot more female content on there. I'm not sure why we have so many women following us when we weren't so female-centric.
Because women are desperate to feel good, and they're desperate to get information, any little strategy that could make them feel better because they feel so chronically bad. Think about when you disrupt your biohacking stack of practices for one day. Like, let's just say you missed your morning routine.
The last 3 days have been that, so I totally know where you're going.
And you see how dysregulated you feel. Now imagine you're a female and that has happened every day of your entire life, and you have no idea that you're interrupting processes that you shouldn't be dysregulating, and you have no perspective on why you feel bad, and you literally are trying everything else that everybody, the men, are doing, and you're not getting any results. In fact, sometimes you're making things worse. Can you imagine what that would do to not only your physiology, but also your psychology and your mental state? It's grueling to go through it. So yeah, we're desperate for information, but we're not getting it.
So when I always said I thought women were more complicated than men, I was right?
We are equally complicated and different, and we require different types of care. You guys function on a circadian clock, and what prompted me to write In the Flow was my discovery of the Infradian rhythm, a second biological clock that governs women in their reproductive years beyond just their cycle, their brain function. The brain in a menstruating woman changes up to 25% over the course of the month. So her immune response is modulated over this infradian rhythm, her stress response, everything is affected by our cyclical hormonal reality. And to operate with some sort of idea or even ideal that you should take care of yourself in the same way each and every day, eat the same amount of calories each and every single day, do the same types of workouts on a daily basis is so much of a mismatch to our biology that we're just really struggling.
So what is that exactly? How does it, what does it mean, and what is that rhythm? Explain it.
Yeah, so the infradian rhythm is the rhythm that governs the menstrual cycle. We experience it over the course of 28 days compared to, let's say, the circadian rhythm, which we experience over the course of 24 hours.
And women have both.
Women have both, and we have to care for both. So yes, you still have to take care of your circadian clock and wear your blue light blocking glasses and do all that good basic daily circadian protection. But you also need to take care of this infradian reality. And what I discovered in my research was seeing things like, oh, our metabolic rates change. The first half of the cycle, follicular and ovulatory phases, our metabolism is slower. So we can do a little bit more extended fasting, and I only ever recommend the golden fast for women, which is, a 12-hour overnight fast. But you could do maybe a little bit more stretching between meals in your follicular and ovulatory phases.
So no intermittent fasting.
No intermittent fasting during reproductive phase, no fasted workouts. The fact that you would even wake up without being ravenously hungry is indicative of chronic undernourishment, mismanaged blood sugar, micronutrient depletion due to overexercising, undereating, mismanaging this infradian clock and all of our cyclical hormones. You should wake up hungry, ready to go, eat a proper breakfast, get your movement in, eat some more. I mean, I'm eating every 3 hours just to maintain my muscle mass and to maintain
Or back in the 90s of like,
improving my metabolic flexibility, right? And, really biohacking my blood sugar, my cortisol, my insulin, my oxytocin, all those circadian things. But all of that really ends up supporting. And then in the second half of the cycle, for example, the metabolism speeds up. So research shows that you need 279 more calories per day in order to protect your metabolism. And that's important because you want to protect progesterone production. Anytime you don't eat enough, then we're talking about insulin dysregulation, which then creates a cortisol dysregulation. And then when we have chronic requests from the body to make more and more cortisol, we start to have lower and lower progesterone production. 80% of women suffer from PMS. PMS is a scenario in which, in the luteal phase, you have more estrogen compared to progesterone, when in fact, ideally, in a healthy menstruating woman, you'd have more progesterone than estrogen, which would equal 0 PMS symptoms, which every woman is designed to
so
have.
there's a cure, huh?
You're not supposed to have any PMS. But if you don't take care of this infradian metabolic shift by modulating your caloric intake across the cycle, you're going to exacerbate the likelihood of you having PMS. And that's why I created the cycle syncing method, which has gone viral at this point, that we need to take care of changing our diets in each cycle phase, changing our workout type and intensity in each phase of the cycle, and leaning into the brain chemistry changes and playing to our hormonal strengths each phase of the cycle so that we can protect blood sugar, protect cortisol, and protect progesterone, which really is the hormone of, I would say, slowing down hormonal aging. Like the more progesterone you have, the more fertile you are for longer, and the later you go into perimenopause. But so many women are going into it younger because they're really dysregulating their infradian clock, damaging their progesterone production, and aging hormonally at rapid rates.
So is intermittent fasting actually destroying women's hormones and aging them faster?
I would say that intermittent fasting is something that we know works really well for women who are postmenopausal, but from where I have practiced for 25 years, I really have only seen it be something that ends up dysregulating women's hormones.
So why are women doing it? Why I see this craze that with intermittent fasting.
Well, I think, there's been a non-gender specific narrative around intermittent fasting. And then I also think, fasting in general really plays upon a woman's cultural conditioning to restrict calories and lose body fat, right? This is just this ideal standard that women should somehow eat less and work out more and strive for that body type. That comes out of the lack of women being included in research and this very unscientific assumption that's been made since we've been kept out of being researched, which is, oh, well, they're probably just smaller versions of men. So whatever's working for the guys should translate to working for women. Now, intermittent fasting is excellent for men, but we are not smaller versions of men, and we need to be nourishing our hormones so that our hormones can take care of our metabolism for us.
So I don't know the study specifically, but you're telling me that all studies are done on just men and then applied to women?
Not all studies, but the vast majority of medical fitness and nutrition research has been done on men that have actively excluded women in their reproductive years. This was due to a study that was done in the 60s on a drug that caused birth defects, and so then it was like this whole shutdown of let's not include women in clinical studies. But that's been to our detriment because now drugs and protocols and diets and workouts are not being tailored to our biological reality, and we're paying the price.
Do birth control pills biologically age women faster, and is big pharma hiding this?
Oh, I can't comment on big pharma, but what I can say is birth control pills shut off ovulation. Ovulation every month is like money in your health bank account. It is cardioprotective, it protects your heart. It is bone protective and it is brain protective today in your current cycle, but also for the years that you will be postmenopausal and no longer ovulating. It is putting money in that future health bank account, protecting your brain, your heart, and your bone density for that period of life. So the opportunity cost of going 2, 3 decades on a medication that shuts off this gift that you will not have postmenopausally, that's something that women should be aware of and, have some decision making around to say, is this something that I'm willing to give up? Um, and then as far as it hurting women's hormones, no, birth control pills don't, let's say, directly hurt women's hormones, but they do shut off your own endogenous hormone production. So you're not making your own hormones anymore. You're taking them supplementally, and they're not an exact match for your bioidentical hormone. Um, and then we do know that the birth control pills particularly can really dysregulate the gut microbiome and deplete micronutrients. So you can have some side effects from that long term. So it's something that women just need more information about. And then fundamentally, the other thing that we always talk about is that it doesn't cure your, diagnosed condition, right? It's not a cure for PCOS. It's not a cure for fibroids. It's not a cure for endometriosis. So if those are the things that you're, using that medication for, really understanding how to use dietary and lifestyle intervention along with your doctor's guidance can be a really much more efficacious path forward to healing your hormones.
What's the truth about synthetic hormones? Are they the silent epidemic in aging?
I mean, I really don't think it's singling out synthetic hormones. I think it's really the gamut of, women are exposed to more endocrine disruptive chemicals than ever before. Women are exposed to more levels of stress because of our infradian dysregulation. We're just more stressed because we're not eating enough. That actually creates internal stressors in the body. We're over exercising. That jacks up our cortisol. It's all that cortisol that's really contributing to this hormonal aging at a rapid rate. Because again, when cortisol goes up, progesterone goes down, and that's when you start to speed up that hormonal aging.
Define over-exercising.
Oh, I mean, fasted workouts, hit workouts on a regular basis, long form cardio, um, I don't know, marathon training, like, anything that's very, very long
But do you think
sports.
that's happening in large scale, this type of exercise? These
I think when I talk to most women, they are doing lots of cardio as a primary form of exercise, when in fact, what's more, studied to be efficacious for metabolic flexibility and longevity is strength conditioning, which doesn't really have an overt cardio component. I'm all for getting in your steps, but if you're going to do something that gives you a big return on your investment at any stage of life, it's strength conditioning with progressive overload training.
So can syncing your cycle actually reverse aging?
I think cycle syncing, the method that I created, is really about protecting your hormones throughout the cycle and really supporting that infradian rhythm. And I'm here to report at almost 48 that, having a regular cycle, I'm not on any hormones, I'm still cycling regularly. All of the years I've put into managing my cyclical patterns has really paying me dividends today, where I'm still functioning at the same level that I was a few years ago. So, I think more research needs to be done. I'm really excited. We're about to launch a study on the cycle syncing method, and we'll see kind of what data that we get from that. I know that we've been helping women for the past 5 years around the world to feel so much better with their cycles. So I think the future is looking bright in terms of understanding for women what are going to be the key needle movers for us in terms of gender specific biohacks that really take us into the health and the future that we want for our individual selves.
So you say cycle syncing is the future. Do you see it becoming the gold standard? And why is a wellness world still stuck in like these old ideas?
I don't think that there's, any specific methodology that's gonna become a gold standard. What I do think is gonna be the new gold standard is going to be this idea that along with pharmacological interventions with standard GYN care, that we are going to upgrade the conversation in GYN care to include a variety of dietary and lifestyle interventions as a new normal, right? And this happened with cardiovascular and metabolic medicine in the 80s and 90s, which had been, drug therapy only initially. And now it's a given that any doctor would talk to their heart patient or a diabetes patient about dietary and lifestyle interventions. And I think gynecological and endocrinology care are really ripe for that same update. And that's what I think the future is for women.
So are women being gaslit by traditional doctors when it comes to hormones and aging?
I think that's really doctor specific, so I can't really speak to that question.
Okay. I look at stuff because I look at influencers and stuff, and we talk about this age-centric thing, and, should women stop listening to people like Andrew Huberman and start listening to, let's say, the uterus or people like you?
You wanna get me in trouble, so I don't wanna get in trouble. Okay.
Let's talk about, like, what oxytocin is and why and
Okay. So one of the hormones I love to talk about when it comes to women and longevity and slowing down rates of hormonal aging and just general health and well-being, it really at any stage is oxytocin. It's the other side of the coin of cortisol, but it just confers so many health benefits. I've written about it in both of my books, but the more oxytocin that you produce, and we can be really intentional and proactive about producing it, the healthier you are, the more regular your ovulation remains, the more collagen you produce, the more strong your immune system becomes. It's heart protective, it's brain protective. There's just unending benefits. In fact, the women who I've seen over the years who age the best are the ones who keep their cortisol extremely low and really go after very proactive forms of boosting oxytocin. So, how do you do that? How do you boost oxytocin? Well, things like hugs, for example,
wow.
40-second hugs, 20-second kisses create oxytocin. Um, Playing with your pets, hanging out with family, with friends, being out in nature, meditating, cooking, doing things that put you in a pleasure zone of feeling good in your body. But there are a couple of other practices that are really specific to women that take that sort of up a notch. One of them is sort of getting on the oxytocin train first thing in the morning. So you either get on the cortisol train or the oxytocin train. When you wake up, if you're checking your phone and getting right into your to-do list and getting right in your head, immediately we're producing sort of that cortisol response, and it's very hard to get off that path for the rest of the day, and then you'll be chasing with blood sugar and caffeine, and your whole day becomes kind of dictated by that first early cortisol rise. If you start the day on the oxytocin train, which I like to do with what I call like a yummy morning practice, where you're just kind of stretching the body, doing a little gratitude, feeling good in your own skin, and just taking 3 to 5 minutes. It's really a short amount of intentional time where you stay out of your head and stay in your body. It sets you up for a day of more slower response to, let's say, the stressors that are coming to you. You're much more better able to respond to that stress. And then the second practice that's unique to women that for men does not have the same effect, in fact, is the opposite. And I know this is a conversation that is being had by some male biohackers. Men should be avoiding it and women should be pursuing more regular orgasm, not necessarily climax, but orgasm for women generates a tremendous amount of oxytocin and nitric oxide. For men, it's very depleting. So, this is a practice that women can do to help them boost more oxytocin and really give them all of those health benefits that we talked about earlier. And it's a free biohack.
I mean, that's amazing. So you specifically said like orgasm instead of climax. Can you explain or differentiate
Yeah,
this?
there's 4 stages of arousal for women, and so, there's tumescence, orgasm, climax, and the refractory period. And so climax is the end of the line, and then we have the recovery period. But orgasm is the part before climax. So that's where you're producing all of those hormones and you get all the hormonal benefits. So this is why I recommend women have a practice that doesn't involve a device to help them maximize that orgasmic plateau before they reach climax. And the longer you stay in that orgasmic plateau, the more oxytocin and nitric oxide you produce, the more health benefits you get for the collagen production, the immune system support, the ovulation regulation, and everything else. That
So when you say without a device, does that mean it has to be a partner or it just has to be self-pleasure?
self-pleasure is fine, but
Yeah.
without like a tool,
Yeah.
without a toy.
Yeah. And I mean, again, not being a woman, can a woman differentiate between like how to get an orgasm versus a climax? Like,
I would hope that they
yeah.
can,
Okay.
but the idea is that climax is the time when you've reached max sensation and you have to take a break. And orgasm is the phase before that.